So let's get back to this debate.
Politically correct bullshit of acting like we care. My first face-off claim is Democrats are the biggest threat to children in this country.
Okay, guys. Look, I know y'all were worried that this debate was going to get a little fiery, that they weren't going to come to any understandings, that they weren't going to communicate in a good way. Now, I gotta say, making that claim is not a claim that you want to make if you want to come to a common understanding or, have a good debate. Ooh, B. Tolman says she's not wrong. All right, let's hear out their arguments.
So clearly the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you for your argument insofar as why you think Democrats are the biggest threat to children in this country. But I want you to keep in mind the hurdles that you have to overcome, most predominantly the fact that the GOP, not the Democrats, are championing an adjudicated rapist as president, somebody who's also boasted about the sexual exploitation of women and girls by barging into their dressing rooms and looking at their naked bodies, on top of the cover-up we see downstream of Donald Trump's administration and the federal government of the co-conspirators, predators, and child rapists inside of the Epstein files. So once again,
he said grapists. You can tell that he's a TikTok streamer.
Again, why do you think Democrats are the biggest threat to children in this country?
See, she's not wrong entirely. See, allowing children to make life-altering decisions that a good portion end up regretting isn't exactly the greatest. You're 100% correct about that. See, anyone who proudly declares they're part of a party is a danger. Now, that is a take right there. Anyone who proudly declares they're a part of a party is a danger.
Okay, first of all, the whole rapist claim is so insane to me. How many people have been sued for calling him a rapist? That's not true. He's not a rapist, or else he would have been charged, and I assume he would have been in jail for that. So throwing that out is not a good way to go about it. You know better than that. I'm sure you understand laws a lot better than I do. That's not my strong field. Not a convicted rapist, okay? I would not support him if he was.
What, he was found guilty in civil court? Is that right, y'all? He was found guilty in civil court, and the reason that it was brought to civil court was because, I guess, the time period that person was allowed to, bring it to non-civil court had expired. Is that right, y'all?
If he was a convicted rapist, nor would other Republicans. The comments of locker room boy talk. I don't care. I don't care what people are saying behind closed doors. I think that's a very normal way to speak for a man. Okay, so my issues would be the border, okay, when we're talking about protecting children. A wide open border is not how I would protect children whatsoever. Okay, 450,000 missing children under the Biden's open borders. That's a lot. We can agree that's a lot. That's unbelievable numbers. Trump, so far, his administration has located 145,000 of those missing children. Why were those children missing? How did they go missing? Why was no one looking for them? I think that's a big deal. I don't like blaming necessarily administrations. I'm just glad the kids are back. I'm sure we can agree with that, right? We're continuing to look for them. So obviously with the open border, you have child trafficking, you have organ harvesting, okay? That's what's happening at these borders. Kids are going with, addresses on their wrists, and they're going to be pretty much sold and raped for the rest of their lives until they...
Now, if Dean does not come back and at least agree with her that it's good that these children were found and that securing the border does reduce the amount of, child trafficking and everything, then we're never going to come to terms. We're never going to agree on anything. Can we do a fact check real quick? All right, guys, what do we want to fact check? 450,000 missing kids under Biden's term. The claim that the Biden administration lost 450,000 children is a subject of intense political debate and misrepresents federal data regarding unaccompanied migrant children. While hundreds of thousands of children were released to sponsors in the U.S. during the Biden administration, and some did not appear for court hearings, they were not technically confirmed as missing or lost by the government. In summary, the 450,000 figure refers to children who passed through government care and were placed with sponsors, but does not equate to hundreds of thousands of missing persons. Let me rewind it for a second, y'all, and hear her exact claim that she made.
Trump, so far, his administration has located 145,000 of those missing children. A wide open border is not how I would protect children whatsoever. Okay, 450,000 missing children under the Biden's open borders. That's a lot. We can.
She says 450,000 missing children under the Biden's missing border. Okay, reports from the Department of Homeland Security in 2025 and early 2026 indicate that over 450,000 unaccompanied alien children were encountered at the U.S. southwest border and placed with sponsors in the U.S. during the Biden administration. The Trump administration has characterized these children as lost or missing due to a lack of follow-up and insufficient vetting of sponsors, launching a UAC safety verification initiative in November 2025 to locate them. So that explains, I guess, why she was saying that 145,000 of them have been located and found. The situation has been described as a humanitarian catastrophe by critics of the previous administration's border policies, who argue that the rapid release of children to sponsors without sufficient post-release services created a crisis of exploitation. I mean, that might be true to an extent for sure, but it's definitely not as simple as Emily's making it sound here. It's not like they were just like 450,000 missing children. It's still a really shocking number.
Kids are going with, addresses on their wrists, and they're going to be pretty much sold and raped for the rest of their lives until they inevitably probably kill themselves from being that traumatized. So I would say closing the border, which Trump has done pretty well, is the number one way to protect kids. Okay, we have to keep those bad people out. We have to keep the kids in. We have to find the kids. And that is the hub of child trafficking. It's hard for Democrats to debate this. I'm like, well, you have abortion, which is killing a lot of kids every year. Not exactly a strong, Republicans are not really the pro-abortion party. You have transgenderism, which is ruining children, and they're also dying from it and killing themselves at record numbers. Democrats are not defending children. 2025, the House passed the Preventing Violence Act, Women by Illegal Aliens Act. So this is pretty much just crimes against children, sex offense, blah, blah, blah. Every single no came from Democrats. I just don't understand. I want to understand, why would you vote no for that? It's protecting children. It's just, this shouldn't.
Y'all. Escrows, to your point, look, she said, I'm trying to understand. I just want to understand. Maybe they are going to come to an understanding. Maybe we are about to learn by watching two people who vehemently disagree on politics have a conversation. One's in the chat if you think that they're gonna learn from each other. Two's in the chat if it's just gonna plummet here as soon as Dean starts talking.
It would be a left versus right thing, which drives me nuts.
The reason Democrats voted no against that bill is because there's already pre-existing law on the book to allow our government to deport somebody on the basis of an accusation, or more so, a conviction of a violent sex crime. So clearly the reason why Democrats voted no is not to give flowers to Nancy Mace that she doesn't deserve, alongside the fact that it's incredibly hypocritical for, as I started this debate with suggesting, to say that you care about violent sex crimes when you made a violent sex criminal president.
Okay, I mean, what would your opinion be on the Lake and...
He can't just continue to negate everything that Emily's saying, though, by saying that Trump is a bad man. Which I get it. Trump is probably not the best person. He probably doesn't have the best moral character. But I want to hear Dean debate more than just saying, well, you can't argue that Democrats are a threat to children because you elected Trump, who is, in fact, a bad man.
Riley Act, which was obviously very talked about.
If I was president, I'd veto it. I think that it's terrible for women and girls abroad because it allows for the deportation of an undocumented immigrant on the basis of an accusation of a violent crime, which then means they'll be deported with no guilty verdict to another country where they will be able to roam free and recommit. At the bare minimum, we should be finding them guilty first, so they'll either land in a jail cell in another country or get thrown in prison here.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, but I'm like, okay, so then are you going
Mutual understanding there, guys.
through a trial first and keeping them in the country until we know that they're guilty? Or are we just allowing them to go and then we're assuming they're guilty? Like, how does that work? Because I know Democrats are very like, got to go by the book. No one's above the law. So like how would that work? What would you prefer? What is wrong with it that would make the bill better, I guess?
I mean, I just told you what's wrong with the Lake and Riley Act is that it deports people on the basis of an accusation, or allows for the deportation of somebody on the basis of an accusation of a violent sex crime, and they roam free in another country where they could recommit. That's the problem. What we should be doing is we should be keeping them in jail here, in custody here, finding them guilty here, and then deporting them to a jail cell abroad, or like I already said, putting them in a jail cell here.
Okay, so obviously you would support them going back to where they came from and serving their jail time where they came from, not here in America.
The only thing that I care about is a reliable criminal justice system where I know they won't be able to roam free on the streets of any country in the face of planet Earth. If they're
He's so media trained. He is so trained on how to give responses. Dean will never care to move to the middle, though. Yeah, because he wouldn't have his bills paid that way.
home country has one of those, send them back and put them in a jail cell there.
What if the home country doesn't have that? Do we keep them here?
Yes.
So we keep them here even though they're violent? We keep them in jail? We keep them away from children? Or do we just let them roam free?
We would probably put somebody found guilty of a violent sex crime in jail.
Well, we tend not to. That's my issue. We have, I cover it on my show. 4 times a week, there's usually a black male with a rap sheet of 45 pages that's committed, he's attacked women, he's assaulted women, he's attempted to rape women, potentially child porn in the past, and then we see he goes and lights a woman on fire because these DAs that are always Democrats under people like George Soros tend to just let them go over and over and over. And I'm like, would you agree we need to keep them in prison? I don't think you should have 45 strikes. I just don't think that works.
What do y'all think about that, by the way? America's criminal justice system here. Do you think we imprison too many people, not enough people, or what? We have more people incarcerated here in the United States than any other country in the world right now. Yet, Emily is right when she says that we still have violent criminals walking around, repeat offenders walking around. Do you think we need to put more people in prison, less people in prison, have a different type of rehabilitation program for people that are committing acts of violence? What do you guys think? You think something more fundamental is wrong? Like the guy that killed the woman on the train, he had a lot of record and was still free. Yes, exactly, Lucia. This is what I think, guys. I think that we imprison too many people for stupid reasons, like weed possession. Really, you were smoking a joint, jail? Like that's freaking stupid. So I think that we need less people in prison for small offenses like that. But as soon as you commit a major offense or you're clearly a repeat offender of serious offenses, you're locked up for a long time. You don't get out in just like a year. But then also, when people do go to prison here in the United States, they don't usually get out and are a better person. They're usually not, I don't know if it's usually, but quite often they are a far worse person. They got more mentally deranged while in prison. They met more contacts in prison of people that are going to help them engage in more illegal activities. So I think that there is a fundamental issue with our prison system as well. So y'all like agree with what I said there? A little bit, maybe? Not at all. I mean, our prisons treat them like animals. Are we surprised when they act like animals after? Exactly, Farrell. You have to behave like an animal in prison to really survive. It's like I've told y'all that story before of like me in high school before, where like when I was going to like a slightly rougher high school and like some kids hit me in the back with a carton of chocolate milk. And my buddy was like, yo, bro, you gonna do anything about that? I was like, no, wow. He was like, if you don't do something about that, they're gonna think you're weak and then they're gonna jump you after school. So you have to do something about it now. And I was like, I'm good, bro. It's cool. So he turned around and he hit him. And he was like, I did that for you. Like, a whole fight broke out because like we had to do that because if we didn't do that, they was gonna think you were weak and you were gonna get your ass beat after school and they were just gonna rob you. But like when you're in that environment every single day, eventually you just adopt that mindset. You know, it turns you into that thing, even if you weren't that thing before going there. And so obviously when you're stuck in prison for a long time, and you got to act like an animal to some extent to survive, to not be beat up, to not be picked on, to not be taken advantage of. When you get out of prison, a lot of people are going to be a little bit more mentally deranged than they were before they went in. If you lock up a person in bad conditions and release them, most people won't turn out better. I've had a lot of friends that have spent, years in jail or prison. A couple have gotten out and been better. They've really gotten their shit together. They have families that get a job and they're better. But I would say the majority of them get out worse, rougher than they were before they went in.
That quote-unquote black male that's been found guilty of rape that's roaming free in the streets is actually a billionaire white man named Donald Trump serving as our president. 2 years ago, a civil court...
Oh my God, he's going to keep on going back to this. I get it, bro.
...court held him liable for the rape of Eugene Carroll, and you still voted for him. You're a hypocrite.
Okay. The Eugene Carroll... so he's guilty, so he's a rapist. Why is he not in jail?
Because, I'll help you with knowledge here about...
Because he was found guilty in civil court. Hey guys, correct me if I'm wrong, my Americans here. In civil court, isn't it a lot easier to be found guilty than in criminal court?
The criminal justice system inside of America, civil courts determine financial responsibility, not criminal responsibility. So when he was found guilty, he wasn't put in a jail cell. He was only forced to pay $87 million. And before you ask, the reason why he couldn't or wasn't found guilty inside of a criminal court of law is because the statute of limitations on the crime had expired, meaning even if Eugene Carroll had a video of it happening to her, she was not able to pursue criminal charges. Therefore, a claim of liability in a civil court of law was the best option she had available.
Statute of limitations. That's the phrase I was looking for earlier. I gotta look this up though really fast, y'all, because I know that there's a big difference in like the way that people are found guilty in criminal versus civil. That makes total sense. So civil cases, it has to be likely true. So over 50% of, I guess, the jury, right, has to think you're guilty. Whereas in criminal court, you have to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, that's actually incredibly interesting. Oh, I could just look to chat. B. Tolman told me, yes, it is 51% guilty rather than 99% or whatever. Okay, cool.
$87 million for saying something happened to you with relatively no proof as one of the most attacked men on the planet. I mean, that is probably, I would say, I'm sure you're, protect women, care about women, feminism. I would say she's the epitome of what makes these cases complete jokes and why people don't believe women about a lot of things they say, including rape, sexual assault. She's a crazy woman who lives in the, first of all, $87 million is unbelievable. That's actually unbelievable for something that you literally can't prove. And I'm just like, so it happened that long ago. You happen to be a crazy liberal feminist. You live in the woods. You do all this crazy art, whatever bullshit she's doing. And then all of a sudden, when someone's president and has power and every three-letter agency and all these people attempted assassinations, all of a sudden now you're traumatized from something that happened that long ago. Trump was born into money, successful, has been around beautiful women his whole life. Why? There's no world where I believe he would even touch that woman, nevertheless rape her.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that you said there. So first and foremost, you said, wow, she was able to sue him and find him guilty of rape with no proof. I don't believe that you've done research into the case. What is one piece of evidence that the jury used to hold Donald Trump liable for raping her?
Okay, so she's in the fitting room at the store. She claims that all this has happened. It's like, that's just not even realistic. None of this has happened. How come she didn't come by 30, 20 plus years ago? Are there tapes of this? Are there evidence? You also have everyone around who's willing to lie for her. You have a justice system who completely wants to put this guy in jail because they can't attempt to assassinate him. There's not... Women who are actually raped by predators on the street, who have real results, can go and get a rape kit. They don't get $87 million. Like, it's just one of those things, regardless if it was Biden or Trump, you look at it, of course she's a liar. There's no reason she deserved $1 for that. There is not substantial proof. Does she have a rape kit? Is there semen in her? Is there any of this? No, she just sued Donald Trump and he had to pay her money.
Guys, once again, look, the claim was that Democrats are the biggest threat to children in this country. And what are they spending the majority of their time debating? I'll tell you, whether or not Donald Trump is, in fact, a rapist.
It's like no one's getting raped and getting $87 million. It's crazy. When you step back and you take Trump out of it, if it was anyone else, you'd be like, that's nuts. But because it's Trump, no one can just look through it with like logical glasses on. It's just like, oh yeah, he's a rapist.
Yeah, you just wasted a minute of your time because I asked you what's one piece of evidence that the jury used to find him guilty, and you sure talked a lot, but you didn't name a piece of evidence, so I'll help you. There was a lot of evidence that the jury used.
You say it's Dean's fault. It's Dean's debate style. He does this in all of his debates, honestly.
In order to hold Donald Trump guilty for the rape of E. Jean Carroll. Most predominantly, you had her own testimony alongside the testimony of 7 of her friends. You had therapist notes from the 90s indicating that she was raped by Donald Trump. You had a dress that she submitted to the court claiming it had Trump's DNA in it from the day that he raped her. And in response, they tested it, found male DNA, asked Trump for his DNA, and he said no, 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 until the discovery period was over. That's something a guilty man would do. Then on top of that, you had the inconsistencies and lies within his own testimony. To start with those, he first claimed that he never met E. Jean Carroll. She responded to the court by submitting a picture of the two together. That's a lie. He also claimed that he never do that to her because she isn't his type, but then under deposition actually confused a picture of his ex-wife, Marla Maples, to be E. Jean Carroll. So how crazy does she sound now? Honestly, that just kind of sounds like victim blaming. And on top of that, I'd say the silver bullet is his character priors. 2005 Access Hollywood tapes, what did he say? He said that he could just grab any woman by their female member. He doesn't even need to ask first. That's exactly what the jury found him guilty for doing. Grabbing E. Jean Carroll by her female member without asking first, then
grabbing Carol, whatever the hell her name is, by her female member. Like, guys, I understand this is a serious topic, but the way that Dean talks, it's goofy. It's goofy, and it makes me chuckle. I'm sorry, but it does. Grabbing her by her female member? Who talks like that?
Inserting his fingers inside. And what about another civil bullet here? In 2005, he also sat down with Howard Stern and straight up told Howard Stern that he had sexually exploited naked women and naked girls by barging into their dressing rooms at Miss Teen USA and Miss USA and then would look at their naked bodies. That's something. And
I think all of us are going to agree here, whether you voted for Trump, whether you hate Trump, whether whatever. I think we can all agree that Trump probably does not have the best moral character. I think that's something that we can all agree on. So I think that you should stop just trying to debate that.
A rapist would do. So I don't understand why you are toeing the line, doing everything you can to defend that rapist.
I'm not defending him. I don't believe the evidence. I think it's completely insane. I don't believe her. She's out of her mind. I don't believe anyone who is trying to take down the president on that level would be honest with something that happened that long ago.
I have limited time here. Your time is up. You can't speak. In your last breath, you straight up told me that you don't believe her, you don't believe the evidence after not
Correct.
responding to any of the pieces of evidence that I told you. It seems like you were brainwashed into this worldview where you were willing to ignore reality, believe the lies, and discount the testimony of a survivor. And that makes sense because that's what the totality of the GOP is doing right now with the survivors from the Epstein files. Pam Bondi wouldn't even look at them. I'm going to use the rest of my time to play you the clip of Donald Trump admitting to sexual exploitation, and I expect at no point in the future of this debate will you acknowledge it, address it, or talk about it at all, because just like with E. Jean Carroll and the fact that she was raped, you're going to sweep it under the rug too.
Like, look, no matter which side of this argument you're on, I mean, Dean Withers is kind of cooking her. Clip farming for sure, Greg. I mean, that's all that any of these people frickin' do, right? Like, anyone, I'm not just talking about Dean or Emily. I'm talking about streamers, YouTubers, all these people. That's all they want to do. They want to clip farm because that's what goes super viral. That's what brings all the eyes on them. That's what brings people to their long form content, their debates, their live shows. That's all, that's everything. I don't get how this is even a debate. Yeah, I mean, it's if we're being real escrows, it's really not.
Well, is there fingers in her or she's raped? Those are...
You can't talk. It's my time to talk.
Well, I feel like that's a good clarification if you're going to call someone a rapist.
You interrupted me there. You said, was it fingers in her or was she raped? That is rape. I would say that the definition of rape would include the penetration of a woman's female member with any part of a man's body, but most definitely.
Hey guys, I'm sorry. I know this is weird for me to ask. Like, if there are still any ladies left in the chat, is that some type of phrasing that y'all use, a female member? This is the first time I've ever heard anyone call it a female member. Oh my god. He's doing TikTok speak. Can you not say vagina on TikTok? Can I say vagina on Twitch? Like, bro, just call it her vagina.
Definitely his fingers. Here's a clip of Donald Trump admitting to sexual exploitation.
Say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that.
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
like
everything is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that.
So I just want to get it clear. You're telling me that this
Yeah, I mean, objectively speaking, it's a creepy as hell thing to do.
man, and you're laughing, this man that admitted to abusing his position of power as the owner of these beauty pageants to barge into the women and girls dressing room, where you then abuse their position of vulnerability because they feel vulnerable enough to take their clothes off to change, to then look at them naked is acceptable, and you in fact even find it funny just like he did.
Okay, so once again, the claim was Democrats are the biggest threat to children in this country. That got debated for maybe half a second. It's true that there were a lot of children that were probably being sex trafficked and whatnot through the southern border. It's good that Donald Trump secured the border. That's a good thing. I'm not going to talk on any type of transgender issues here on Twitch because I know that people get banned for talking about that. So we're not going to do that. Don't worry, Twitch. But then they just talked about how, I guess, Republicans can't care about children because they voted Donald Trump into office and he is in fact a rapist and doesn't care about children and potentially was hiding what Jeffrey Epstein and his little elitist class was doing. So once again, they really didn't debate the point.